Hey guys, what's up? It's Imurgency and welcome back to our channel. The show that we're going to be talking about today has been one that has been highly requested in pretty much every single one of these show commentary videos, and also was one of the top suggestions on my community post that I posted the other day. Also, make sure if you haven't already to hit the bell icon down here. Make sure that you don't miss any of those. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about the show Never Have I Ever. If you haven't seen it already, let me give you a quick synopsis. Never Have I Ever is a Netflix drama show that follows the main character Davy, who goes throughout her days as a brown high school girl, but also has a bunch of trauma she is trying to unpack and navigate because her dad recently passed away and she lost the ability to walk in her legs for a period of time. So the story takes place with her dealing with all of that while also trying to navigate the whole high school thing. And like I said, the show is actually very interesting, although it does take on the traditional Netflix high school drama that we're used to seeing. It really adds a different spin on it because it is one of the first major shows on Netflix of this genre to focus on an Indian girl and her family. Also, fun fact, I realized this while I was watching the show. I actually helped my friend audition to be one of the main cast members on the show, and she actually got a call back. She didn't end up going through with it because of other life commitments. This is a real Madison beer moment.
I hate saying this because then everyone on Twitter is like, "You're lying, I hate you." I was supposed to be in the video.
No,
Because while I was watching the show, a lot of the characters' lines were really similar to the casting monologues that my friend had to read, and I was like, huh, this seems familiar. And then I looked back and I was like, oh, this is the same show. So I guess that's a full circle Madison beer moment. I was supposed to be in the video. And I guess since I brought them up, let's talk about the characters just for a little bit. I already briefly touched on Davy, but she is the main character, the protagonist. She's incredibly book smart and one of the top people in her class. But when it comes to socially or street smarts, she's kind of like a dead horse, respectfully. She tries to be social and witty and stuff, but it really is just awkward, to say the least. And she also has these two best friends, Fabiola and Eleanor, who each have their own interesting backstories and plot points throughout the show. But I'll get into later, they don't really get their full time to shine yet in this season. And then there also is this kid, Ben Gross, who's set up to be Davy's rival. He's this really smart and rich white kid, but is just generally neglected by his parents, and also has a minor crush on Davy. Then there's Paxton, who's really set up to be white boy of the month, the main love interest. He's super cool, super edgy, super mysterious. He's who Davy is head over heels for throughout the entire season, and makes some pretty interesting decisions. But yeah, those are all the characters. Let's actually get into the plot. I think the things that make this show as good as it is are definitely the difference in representation factors, if that makes sense. There's just a lot of representation in people in spaces that normally aren't shown to be in those spaces. So for example, it's sort of an inverted effect where the main characters are people of color while the supporting characters are all usually white, which is something that you don't usually see in this genre of show. They also show people having a healthy relationship with therapy and have it be something that's normal. And the only people that are shown in therapy are people of color, which is actually huge because in real life, there's a huge stigma for people of color, to not go to therapy because it's seen as something that is for white people. And they even said that in the show. And there's just a bunch of negative connotations and stereotypes along with therapy. And it's really nice to see a show really break that down and show that therapy is actually beneficial and sort of give people a glimpse into what being in therapy is like. The show also takes its time to delve into the different Indian cultures, whether that just be in side passing comments or in full-on episodes where they show different cultural events, as well as unpacking the whole dilemma that I feel a lot of people of color go through of how much you really want to identify yourself with your culture and navigating the shame and guilt that comes along with that, which I feel was really refreshing to see. I know I just said all these good things about the show, but I really can't bring myself to feel anything more than meh. Okay, that's a bold-faced lie because I will say the finale made me feel something. It made me feel just a little something, I'm not gonna lie. But for the rest of it was kind of just it definitely was enjoyable to watch, but I guess my general emotion overall while watching it was just, it wasn't overwhelmingly positive and it also was not negative. It was kind of just there, and let me explain why. While I feel the whole representation thing that I talked about earlier was really inventive and really nice and refreshing to see, the plot itself was mad mediocre. It really is just bare bones high school drama. I get it was meant to be a lighthearted comedy slash minor drama show, but I feel for most of the show, except the finale, we'll get into the finale, was just really generic. You have pretty much all like the typical like high school show cliches in there. Awkward high school girl in love with popular high school boy, and then like drama that ensues in between the two. But I guess like the one major difference with this whole formula is that the popular boy actually from the get-go likes the main character right away, which is really weird because he doesn't really have any motivation to. Like literally has no concept of who she is before, and she walks up to him and be like, yo, you trying to fuck? And all of a sudden he's like, oh, I'm in love. Maybe not exactly like that, but like that's like the gist. Or, like they weren't friends before, they didn't really know each other before, but it's clear even from their first encounter that like she's not like other girls. And he obviously has feelings for her that he's like repressing because like she's not cool. But like we been knew that Paxton likes Davy. I guess since we're on that, let's talk about something that's mildly problematic. I find it really interesting how a lot of the time, almost all the time, when you have a show centered around people of color and the protagonist is a person of color, that they always find a way, these showrunners always find a way to make the main love interest or the predominant love interest be a white man or a white person. Of course, there's like nothing wrong with that inherently. Maybe not in this one specifically, but in a lot of shows, they set up the person of color to have an option between dating like the white person and dating like the person of color, and they usually have them end up with the white person. This whole narrative and almost niche that's like formed of just like falling for the typical white boy is becoming more and more common. I feel like we can open up the story more and give them more options for people to date. Like there are a lot of options that people could choose. And I know what you may be thinking right now, Rumi, she didn't fall for a white boy. Paxton's part Japanese. That's not who I was talking about, babes. That's not who I was talking about. I'm not gonna spoil it, but that's not who I was talking about. But the fact that you thought that speaks volumes as well. Anyways, let's get into some more things. I'm just gonna come out and say it. I don't think that Davy was a likable character. I really don't think she was a likable character throughout the show, and I don't think that she was made out to be a likable character. I don't think we're supposed to. Of course we're supposed to support the main character, but I'm not sure we're supposed to like her. And here I just wanted to clarify that, yeah, I didn't find her to be a likable character, but that doesn't mean I didn't find her to be a relatable character. I feel like those are two different things. And while the show made her very relatable in like the way that she traversed throughout the world, just her personality and the antics that she was up to just were not likable. Throughout the entire show, she never responds to a single conflict well. And I understand like she may be acting the way she is because of her like trauma and because she is a teenager, but it doesn't make sense that every single conflict that she gets into turns into a screaming match or her breaking something. Like I just feel like her communication skills and conflict management skills, even for a teenager, is really lacking and really low. Respectfully. Like I think that she's actually like popped off on every single character in the show. Like every single named character in this show, she has yelled at, minus Paxton. And speaking of trauma, there's this whole section at the end of the show where Davy, Fabiola, and Eleanor are all trying to make amends for their whole fight that they had, and we'll talk about that in a second, but that was meant to like resolve everything and make them all good again. But I really don't think that throughout this season, Davy has really processed her trauma at all. Like by the end, she still is dealing with a bunch of trauma and a bunch of grief. Like they just show like different flashbacks and different moments where she's just like, oh, I remember. But like she never actually like deals with that. Like of course at the end she actually ends up going with her family to do what they were going to do. But I'm sure that that doesn't like alleviate all of, like the trauma and stuff that she has. And I know there's a second season and it's probably not their goal to like solve all of her issues in like the first season. But it's still nice to know like where she's at. Along with the whole thing of like them moving at the end of the season. Like there's no like update on that, like how that's going. So I'm just gonna chalk that up to like having that be like the mystery for season 2. So I'm not gonna like judge that too much. But what I am gonna judge is Davy as a character. Davy is an awful friend. Point blank period. Awful friend. And I think that Davy's friends forgave her way too quickly. Way too quickly for nothing. Like how are you going to be the problem and then expect those that you hurt to go and apologize to you? And for those that are hurt, why are you apologizing in the first place? And then why are you accepting that apology and being friends even though you had to make the effort? Like, I just don't understand. Like, their dynamic, like, I get, like, they're best friends and all, but after Davy betrays their friend's trust and, like, does all this snake shit, why is she the one that has the ego and doesn't go and apologize to her friends? Like, I don't get it. In my opinion, they should have ended the season of them still not being friends. Maybe, like, they start being friends, but they don't just, like, snap back. Like, it's not just instant. Like, there should have been more to it, because I feel like the stuff that caused them to break up was a much bigger deal than what they're playing it out to be. in their makeup, if that makes sense. Like Davy was really giving like full pick-me girl energy, full snake energy, full like I do not care about my friends, I care about this boy that I met a week ago more than the friends I've known for years energy. And her friends are just like, yep, get you, girl, I get it, I understand, like we can be besties again. Like no, Davy was literally not there when her friends went through like the biggest change period in their lives, but the second that Davy struggles as like the main character, her friends are expected to just like jump to her aid, and like no, I don't think so. There should have been more to that. I didn't like that at all. And one of the last things about the show I really want to talk about, because I find it really interesting, is Davy's mom. I personally feel like she's like the most interesting and complex character on this show, and doesn't really get enough credit for it, just because she is like the representation of like parental trauma and parental grief. Like she lost her husband and is stuck with a daughter that she admittedly does not get along well with because of like the whole teenager thing. But she deals with like this parental trauma where she has to continue to be like a strong figure and pretend like everything is okay. And you can like see throughout the show, like she constantly has these moments where she's trying to like move past what happened to her in maybe not like the healthiest ways, like selling her house, trying to sell like her husband's motorcycle, but her trying to navigate that trauma that clearly affects her while also trying to be there for her daughter's trauma and then be there for her job. And her navigating all that is just so interesting because you can really see how each of these things impact each of her choices and how she goes about parenting and just life in general. Like she's a super strict parent, and I feel like she was always like that, but definitely with the passing of her husband, the reasoning behind that has changed a bunch. Like it's not just the whole parental factor, it's like the fear of losing anyone else. And like when she does things that are like contradictory to that, like driving Davy out the house and then like not checking on her, and then also being strong enough to like take herself to therapy and realize something's wrong. But like that's like cool, she's like interesting, like undervalued character for sure. And that reminds me, I didn't talk about the finale. I will say just really briefly, like the finale did what it needed to do. Like I said before, like the show was just really mundane, really basic, but like the finale was actually very emotional, had a lot of twists, and just generally was like a good finale. I feel like it was definitely like the best episode in the show so far, which is something good because y'all know how I feel about finales. Y'all know. Like I don't want to spoil it, but like that end scene, not like the end scene, but like the emotional scene, like I don't like get like emotional for shows, but like that one made me like, and that was Never Have I Ever. This is definitely a show that I'd recommend if you haven't seen it already. I'd give it a solid like 7 out of 10, just because it did all the things that it needed to do. It wasn't necessarily like groundbreaking as in terms of plot, but just in terms of like representation, like definitely did do what it needed to. But yeah, thank y'all so much for watching. If you are new to the channel, then hit that subscribe button and leave a like on this video because that helps out a bunch. Make sure to follow me on my socials here at Imurgency, and to check out my Twitch and community Discord server down in the description below. Other than that, y'all, thank you so much for watching. I've been Imurgency, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.